What if everything you've been taught about manifestation is missing one important piece? What if your dream is not something you need to force into existence? What if your desire is not something distant, separate from you, or hidden somewhere in the future? And what if the reason you've been searching so hard is because you've forgotten something that already belongs to you? Most people spend their lives trying to make things happen. They chase opportunities, chase signs, chase results, and chase the feeling that one day they will finally arrive at the life they want. They believe fulfillment is waiting somewhere ahead of them. They believe happiness comes after the goal is achieved. They believe certainty comes after the evidence appears. But what if that is backwards? What if the life you desire already exists as a possibility waiting for your acceptance? What if the feeling of fulfillment is not something you earn in the future, but something you remember in the present? Today, I invite you to consider a different perspective. Instead of trying to manifest your desire, what if you simply remembered it? What if the version of you who already has everything you seek is not far away, but already alive within your imagination? What if your task is not to create a new reality, but to become familiar with the one you have chosen? For the next few moments, set aside the need to force, struggle, or chase. Release the habit of waiting. Let go of the belief that your dream is somewhere outside of you, and open yourself to a simple possibility. You are not manifesting it. You are remembering it. Let's begin. One of the most exhausting habits people develop is the belief that they must force reality into existence through constant effort, worry, and struggle. They imagine that their dream is something completely absent, something that has not yet been created, and therefore something they must somehow manufacture from nothing. This perspective keeps them trapped in a state of striving. They spend their days trying to make things happen, searching for signs, checking for results, and wondering whether they are doing enough. The more they chase, the more distant fulfillment can feel. Yet there is another way to see the process. Instead of trying to create what already exists as a possibility, you begin aligning yourself with it mentally and emotionally. Think about a radio receiving a signal. The music is not created by the radio itself. The signal already exists, and the radio's job is to tune into the correct frequency. In the same way, the life you desire can be approached as a reality you are choosing to tune into rather than a reality you are desperately trying to manufacture. This shift changes the entire emotional experience. Striving creates tension. Alignment creates receptivity. Striving is rooted in the feeling that fulfillment is missing. Alignment is rooted in the feeling that fulfillment is available and waiting for acceptance. Most people are conditioned to think that their current circumstances are the only reality that matters. They look at what is visible and conclude that anything different does not yet exist. If the money is not in the bank account, they assume abundance is absent. If the opportunity has not appeared, they assume success is unavailable. If the relationship has not arrived, they assume love is distant. Yet human imagination constantly reveals possibilities beyond present appearances. The fact that you can clearly conceive of a different experience suggests that your mind is already capable of accessing a reality beyond your current conditions. The question is not whether the possibility exists. The question is whether you are willing to identify with it. This does not mean denying the world around you. It means refusing to treat current circumstances as the ultimate definition of what is possible. Your outer world often reflects previous assumptions, habits of thought, and emotional patterns. If you want a different future, continually fighting the current reflection is less effective than changing the inner pattern that produced it. When you stop trying to force results and begin changing the state from which you think, feel, and act. You address the cause rather than only reacting to the effect. Imagine standing before a mirror. If you dislike the reflection, you could spend all day arguing with the mirror, but the reflection will not change until the person standing in front of it changes. In the same way, endlessly fighting circumstances while maintaining the same inner assumptions keeps the reflection largely intact. The more powerful move is to change your identification. Begin seeing yourself as the version of you who already belongs to the reality you desire. Think from that identity. Feel from that identity. Make decisions from that identity. As the inner state changes, the outer reflection begins to reorganize around it. Many people misunderstand this idea and think it means becoming passive. It does not. You still take action. You still learn, grow, communicate, and make decisions. The difference is that your actions are no longer driven by desperation. They come from confidence rather than fear. A person who believes abundance is possible acts differently from someone who believes abundance is unavailable. A person who sees themselves as capable notices opportunities that fear might have caused them to ignore. The change begins in identity and then expresses itself through behavior. One of the clearest signs that you are moving from striving into alignment is a growing sense of ease. You stop obsessing over every detail. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop measuring your worth by immediate results. Instead, you develop a quiet confidence that the reality you have chosen is already available to you in principle, and your role is to remain aligned with it rather than force it into existence. There will still be moments when old habits return. You may catch yourself worrying, checking for evidence, or feeling that you must push harder. When this happens, gently remind yourself of the new perspective. I am not trying to create what already exists as a possibility. I am learning to recognize it, accept it, and live from it. Return to the feeling of fulfillment rather than the feeling of chasing. The secret is not in endlessly manufacturing outcomes. The secret is in changing the state from which you live. When you stop fighting reality and start aligning with the reality you desire, something profound begins to happen. Your thoughts become different. Your expectations become different. Your emotional tone becomes different. And over time, the outer world begins reflecting the inner reality you have accepted. You are not forcing the signal into existence. You are tuning yourself to it. That is why the first step is to stop trying to create what already exists and start living as though you already belong to it. One of the most fascinating experiences on the journey of personal transformation is the moment when a desired reality begins to feel familiar before it becomes visible. It is as though you are remembering something rather than creating it. You cannot always explain why, but there is a growing sense of certainty, a quiet confidence, and an inner knowing that feels deeper than hope. This is why the feeling of fulfillment is so powerful. It is not merely an emotion, it is a state of consciousness that allows you to connect with a reality beyond your present circumstances. In many ways, it feels like the memory of your future. Most people spend their lives waiting for external events to produce inner emotions. They believe that once the goal is achieved, they will finally feel grateful. Once success arrives, they will finally feel confident. Once the relationship appears, they will finally feel loved. Once abundance shows up, they will finally feel secure. This way of thinking places fulfillment entirely in the hands of future circumstances. As a result, people continue postponing the very feelings they desire most. But consider something for a moment. If your dream had already come true, how would you feel right now? You would probably feel relieved. You would feel calm. You would feel grateful. You would feel a sense of certainty because the waiting would be over. The anxiety about whether it would happen would disappear. The struggle of constantly searching for evidence would end. There would be a natural ease, because what you wanted would already be part of your experience. The remarkable thing is that these feelings are available before the physical evidence appears. You do not have to wait for the outer world to grant you permission to experience them. You can begin cultivating them now. When you do, something interesting happens. The emotional state that once seemed dependent upon future circumstances begins becoming part of your present reality. Think about a memory from your past that brought you great joy. The moment you remember it, you can often feel the emotions associated with it again. Even though the event is not physically happening in front of you, the feeling returns because your mind reconnects with the experience. In a similar way, when you enter the feeling of fulfillment, it can feel as though you are remembering a future event that has already occurred on a deeper level of awareness. The feeling becomes more real than the absence of visible evidence. Many people dismiss feelings as unimportant, focusing entirely on facts and circumstances. Yet emotions influence perception in powerful ways. They affect how you interpret events, how you respond to opportunities, and what you expect from life. A person who consistently feels confident sees the world differently than someone who constantly feels defeated. A person who feels abundant notices possibilities that someone focused on scarcity may overlook. Your emotional state shapes your experience more than most people realize. This is why cultivating the feeling of fulfillment matters so much. It changes your relationship with your desire. Instead of viewing it as something far away, you begin experiencing it as something close, familiar, and natural. The emotional distance between you and your goal begins shrinking. What once felt impossible starts feeling attainable. What once felt distant starts feeling present. Of course, this does not happen instantly. At first, the feeling may come and go. You may experience moments of certainty followed by moments of doubt. This is normal. The important thing is to keep returning to fulfillment. Return to gratitude. Return to relief. Return to the feeling that everything has already worked out. Each time you do, you strengthen the connection to that state. Imagine meeting someone who has already achieved what you desire. Notice how they carry themselves. They do not walk around desperately trying to convince themselves of their success. They naturally embody it because it has become part of their identity. Their confidence feels effortless because fulfillment has become familiar. This is the same familiarity you are developing within yourself. The more often you dwell in the feeling of fulfillment, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it begins replacing old habits of worry and uncertainty. You stop constantly wondering when things will happen, because your focus shifts toward the experience of already having them. Your energy becomes calmer. Your expectations become more positive. Your inner world begins reflecting the reality you wish to experience. So stop waiting for future circumstances to create the feelings you desire. Begin cultivating those feelings now. Allow yourself to experience gratitude before the evidence appears. Allow yourself to experience confidence before the breakthrough arrives. Allow yourself to experience relief before the problem is solved. Because the feeling of fulfillment is more than a pleasant emotion. It is a bridge between where you are and where you wish to be. It is the sense that your desired reality is already known on a deeper level. It is the memory of your future calling you forward. And the more familiar that feeling becomes, the more naturally your life begins moving in harmony with it. Everything that eventually becomes visible in your life begins in an invisible place, your inner world. Before an achievement is celebrated, before an opportunity appears, before a dream becomes reality, there is first a pattern of thought, belief, imagination, and expectation within. Most people spend their lives trying to change external circumstances while giving little attention to the inner blueprint from which those circumstances emerge. They focus on appearances and wonder why the same patterns continue repeating. Yet, if you truly want to understand transformation, you must understand that your inner world holds the blueprint for the experiences you consistently create and attract into your life. Think of an architect designing a building. Long before construction begins, there is a blueprint. Every wall, every room, every detail exists first as a plan. The workers who build the structure are not creating randomly, they are following a design. In many ways, your life works according to a similar principle. Your thoughts, assumptions, self-concept, and emotional patterns act like a blueprint. They shape how you see opportunities, how you respond to challenges, and what you expect from the future. Over time, the outer world often begins reflecting the inner design you have accepted as true. The challenge is that many people are unaware of the blueprint they are carrying. They may consciously desire success while unconsciously expecting failure. They may dream of abundance while secretly believing they are unworthy of it. They may long for freedom while continually rehearsing thoughts of limitation. When these contradictions exist, the outer world often reflects the dominant pattern rather than the occasional wish. This is why changing your inner world is so important. It allows you to redesign the blueprint from which your experiences are formed. Consider how much of your day is shaped by internal activity. You are constantly thinking, imagining, interpreting, and reacting. You carry conversations within your mind. You tell yourself stories about who you are, what is possible, and what the future holds. These inner narratives are not neutral. They influence your emotions, your decisions, and your expectations. If your inner story is one of struggle, you will often perceive life through that lens. If your inner story is one of possibility and fulfillment, you will begin seeing opportunities that were previously overlooked. One reason imagination is so powerful is that it allows you to experience possibilities before they become physical facts. You can mentally rehearse success long before success appears. You can feel gratitude before receiving what you desire. You can imagine yourself as confident before circumstances provide evidence of confidence. In doing so, you begin introducing a new pattern into the blueprint. The mind gradually becomes familiar with a reality that once seemed distant. Many people underestimate the importance of familiarity. What feels familiar often feels natural, and what feels natural tends to influence behavior. If you repeatedly imagine yourself succeeding, confidence gradually becomes more familiar. If you repeatedly dwell on fulfillment, fulfillment begins feeling more natural. Over time, your actions start aligning with this new inner pattern. You make different decisions. You notice different opportunities. You respond to challenges differently. The blueprint begins expressing itself through your daily life. This is why it is so important to guard your inner world carefully. Every thought you repeatedly entertain, every assumption you consistently accept, and every story you continually tell yourself contributes to the design you are creating. If you spend your days rehearsing fear, you strengthen a blueprint of fear. If you spend your days cultivating confidence, gratitude, and possibility, you strengthen a blueprint of fulfillment, the choice of which design to reinforce belongs to you. Of course, changing an inner blueprint takes time. Patterns that have been repeated for years do not disappear overnight. There may be moments when old beliefs attempt to return. You may catch yourself falling back into familiar worries or doubts. This is not a sign of failure. It is simply an invitation to choose again. Every time you redirect your attention toward the reality you desire, you strengthen the new design. Every time you return to confidence instead of fear, you reinforce a different blueprint. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. Small changes repeated over time can create remarkable transformations. A single empowering thought may not seem significant, but a pattern of empowering thoughts can reshape how you see yourself and the world. A single moment of gratitude may be brief, but a habit of gratitude can alter your entire perspective. So remember that your inner world is not merely a private space where thoughts come and go. It is the creative blueprint from which much of your experience is built. If you want a different future, begin by changing the design within. Imagine differently, expect differently, speak to yourself differently, feel differently. Let your inner world reflect the reality you wish to experience. Because when the blueprint changes, the structure that follows begins changing as well. And as you continue strengthening the inner design of fulfillment, confidence, and possibility, your outer world gradually starts reflecting the reality that first existed within you. One of the biggest obstacles people face when pursuing a dream is the constant need for evidence. They want proof that things are working. They want signs that their efforts are paying off. They want visible confirmation that their desire is getting closer. On the surface, this seems reasonable. After all, the world teaches us to believe what we can see. It teaches us to trust facts, circumstances, and appearances. Yet, when it comes to creating a new experience of life, an obsession with evidence can become a trap. The more you search for proof, the more you reinforce the feeling that the desired reality is still absent. Instead of living from fulfillment, you remain focused on waiting for fulfillment. Think about what happens when you repeatedly check for results. Every time you look for evidence, you are silently asking a question. Has it happened yet? Hidden within that question is the assumption that it has not happened. The mind becomes conditioned to search for confirmation because it continues identifying with the state of not having. Even when small signs appear, the search often continues because the deeper habit is still rooted in waiting rather than fulfillment. Imagine planting a seed in fertile soil. After planting it, you would not dig it up every day to see whether roots are forming. Doing so would only interfere with the process. Instead, you would trust that growth is occurring beneath the surface. You would continue watering the soil and allowing nature to work. In many ways, the same principle applies to the inner changes that precede visible results. Constantly digging up the seed by searching for proof can keep your attention fixed on absence rather than growth. Most people are far more aware of what they cannot see than what they can feel. They focus on the lack of external evidence while ignoring the transformation occurring within them. Yet inner changes are often the first signs of progress. A growing sense of peace, a stronger feeling of confidence, a greater expectation of good outcomes, and a deeper trust in possibility are all indicators that something meaningful is shifting. These internal developments may not appear dramatic, but they often precede significant changes in the outer world. The idea of remembering completion offers a different perspective. Instead of constantly asking whether your desire is coming, you begin relating to it as though it is already part of your story. Think about a memory from your past. You do not spend time wondering whether it happened because you know it did. There is a sense of certainty. There is no struggle to convince yourself. The event simply feels complete. When you begin approaching your desire from this state of completion, your relationship with it changes. You stop chasing and start remembering. This does not mean pretending that circumstances do not exist. It means refusing to let circumstances determine your inner state. A person who lives from completion does not need constant reassurance. They carry a quiet confidence that remains steady even when appearances are slow to change. They understand that temporary conditions are not final outcomes. Because of this understanding, they remain rooted in fulfillment rather than reacting to every fluctuation in the external world. One reason remembering completion is so powerful is that it changes your emotional experience. Searching for evidence often creates tension. It can produce impatience, frustration, and doubt. Remembering completion creates relief. It creates calmness. It creates gratitude. These emotions influence how you think, how you act, and how you perceive opportunities. Instead of approaching life from a place of lack, you begin approaching it from a place of abundance. Consider how differently you would move through your day if you truly believed the outcome was already secure. Would you spend every moment worrying? Would you constantly analyze every circumstance? Probably not. You would likely feel more relaxed. You would make decisions with greater confidence. You would trust the process instead of trying to control every detail. This is the state that remembering completion invites you into. There will be moments when the temptation to seek evidence returns. You may find yourself wondering whether progress is occurring. You may feel the urge to measure results. When this happens, gently redirect your attention. Return to the feeling of completion. Return to the certainty that what you have chosen internally does not depend upon immediate external validation. Remind yourself that your role is not to constantly inspect the seed, but to remain faithful to the vision. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. The need for proof weakens because confidence grows stronger. The habit of searching is replaced by the habit of knowing. The feeling of waiting is replaced by the feeling of fulfillment. What once seemed distant begins feeling familiar. What once felt uncertain begins feeling natural. So stop looking for evidence as the source of your confidence. Let confidence come first. Let fulfillment come first. Let gratitude come first. Choose to remember completion instead of rehearsing absence. Choose to trust the reality you have accepted within. Because the more consistently you live from completion, the more naturally your life begins reflecting it. And when fulfillment becomes your dominant state, you no longer need evidence to convince you. It simply becomes a matter of time before the outer world catches up with what you already know within. The final step in understanding the secret of living from the end is learning to live from the version of yourself who already knows, not the version who hopes, not the version who worries, not the version who constantly asks when, where, or how, but the version who already knows that what has been chosen internally is certain. This is one of the most powerful shifts you can make because it changes your entire relationship with your desire. Instead of looking at life through the eyes of someone who is waiting for something to happen, you begin seeing life through the eyes of someone who has already accepted the outcome. Most people live from uncertainty. They wake up each day wondering whether things will work out. They allow circumstances to determine their confidence. If they see progress, they feel hopeful. If they encounter obstacles, they feel discouraged. Their emotional state rises and falls according to appearances. Because of this, they never experience true stability. Their faith depends upon evidence, and their confidence depends upon results. Yet the version of you who already knows operates differently. That version is not controlled by temporary conditions, because certainty comes from within rather than from the outside world. Imagine someone who has already achieved a dream they once thought was impossible. Think about how they would move through their day. They would not spend every moment worrying about whether success was coming, because success would already be part of their experience. They would not constantly seek reassurance, because there would be nothing left to prove. Their confidence would feel natural. Their decisions would be guided by certainty rather than fear. Their actions would reflect trust rather than doubt. This is the mindset you are invited to cultivate. You are not trying to become confident someday. You are learning to think from confidence now. You are not waiting for certainty to arrive in the future. You are choosing certainty in the present moment. The more often you do this, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, it begins feeling natural. One of the reasons people struggle with this concept is because they believe certainty must be earned. They think they need visible evidence before they can trust. Yet, if certainty depends entirely on circumstances, it will always be fragile. Circumstances change, conditions shift, delays occur. If your confidence is built only on external events, it will constantly be tested. True stability comes from developing an inner knowing that remains steady regardless of appearances. Think about a captain guiding a ship across the ocean. There may be storms, strong winds, and unexpected challenges. The conditions may change from day to day, yet the captain continues navigating toward the destination, because the destination has already been chosen. The presence of a storm does not mean the destination has disappeared. It simply means the journey continues. In the same way, living from the version of you who already knows means remaining committed to your chosen reality even when circumstances temporarily seem uncertain. Another important aspect of this state is trust. The version of you who already knows does not need to control every detail. They do not feel compelled to force outcomes. They understand that life often unfolds through unexpected pathways. Because they trust the destination, they can relax about the road. They remain open to possibilities they may not have considered. This openness creates space for opportunities, ideas, and solutions to emerge naturally. Living from the version of you who already knows also transforms your inner conversations. Instead of constantly questioning whether things will work out, you begin speaking to yourself from certainty. Your thoughts become more supportive. Your expectations become more positive. You stop rehearsing failure and start rehearsing success. Over time, these inner conversations strengthen your sense of identity. You begin seeing yourself differently because you are no longer identifying with struggle, but with fulfillment. There will be moments when doubt tries to return. Old habits may resurface. You may find yourself wondering whether you are on the right path. This is completely normal. The key is not to eliminate every doubtful thought. The key is to stop giving those thoughts authority. Whenever uncertainty appears, return to the version of yourself who already knows. Return to the feeling of confidence. Return to the awareness that your chosen reality remains intact regardless of temporary appearances. As you continue doing this, something powerful begins to happen. The state of knowing becomes stronger than the state of doubt. Confidence becomes more familiar than fear. Fulfillment becomes more natural than waiting. You begin moving through life with a calm assurance that no longer depends on constant validation. The future stops feeling uncertain because you are no longer living toward it. You are living from it. So choose today to identify with the version of yourself who already knows. Think from that perspective. Feel from that perspective. Make decisions from that perspective. Let certainty become your foundation rather than your reward. Because when you consistently live from the version of yourself who already knows, you stop chasing fulfillment and start embodying it. And that is where true transformation begins. As we come to the end of this message, take a moment to reflect on what we've explored together. You do not need to spend your life chasing what you desire. You do not need to force reality to cooperate. You do not need to live in a constant state of waiting, hoping, and wondering. The moment you understand that fulfillment begins within, everything starts to change. When you stop identifying with the person who is trying to get something and start identifying with the person who already has it, your entire perspective shifts. You think differently. You feel differently. You expect differently. You move through life with a quiet confidence that no longer depends on circumstances. The secret is not in constantly asking when your desire will appear. The secret is in becoming familiar with the feeling that it is already part of your reality. Remember it, return to it, live from it. Let your thoughts reflect it. Let your emotions support it. Let your inner conversations confirm it. And whenever doubt appears, remind yourself that you are not moving toward fulfillment. You are moving from it. You are not becoming the person you wish to be. You are remembering who you have chosen to be. The reality you desire becomes easier to experience when it no longer feels distant. So stop chasing, stop searching, stop measuring every moment for evidence. Instead, return to the feeling of completion. Return to the awareness that it is already done. Because the more natural fulfillment becomes within you, the more naturally life begins reflecting it around you. You are not manifesting it. You are remembering it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this message inspired you, encouraged you, or helped you see your desires from a new perspective, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who may need this reminder. And in the comments below, write, "I remember the reality I have chosen." Let those words become more than a comment. Let them become a decision to stop living in doubt, a decision to stop waiting for permission, a decision to live from fulfillment rather than chase it. Thank you for your support, your time, and your presence. Until next time, continue trusting your vision, continue choosing fulfillment, and continue remembering the version of yourself who already knows it is done. Take care, and I'll see you in the next